going to ask some questions in response, because the whole reason why we're discussing the role of different actors is when our different industries come and meet. When there's a nexus between the gateway, media freedom, and freedom of speech. And that nexus came when OLP was introduced, or came upon us viciously into our psyche. So, Tala, I know you're an IT specialist. You've set up one of the most tremendous websites this country has ever seen from governments through the PSC. Amazing work. And now you're in the regulatory side of things. How do you think governments can respond to future threats like OLP? Because as much as we say, well, actually it's just a person expressing their views, there are actually serious risks to safety of people as a result of some of the rumors that are quite viciously spreading on that. So it causes a lot of trauma to people, to politicians, to leaders. It just spreads misinformation. How do you, just from your own perspective, having built these systems for government and now sitting where you are now, how do you think government should respond in moving forward to ensure that such things are, controlled or measured? And no, we won't take no comment.
Thank you, Cheryl. You just really put it on the spot. No, I think I really quite like the idea how Tosi really bring this out to our audience. I think, government will only step into formulating a policy or even a law when there are issues and burning critical areas where there are fear yo tatu tangata. I mean, take for example, the internet, as mentioned by my colleagues here, it's an enabler for our social and economic development nowadays. And we foresee that it's the road to drive our country to a next level. And we don't want to be left behind while all the rest of the world is moving towards these new innovations and this digital world we are moving towards. It's just like a tool, it's a tool but as I say, are we going to ban importing of knives into Samoa? I mean, it's the same thing with the internet. Only because of one this sort of blocker bringing up all this, are we going to really shut it down because of that? And I think that is where government comes in terms of how do we see to protect okako kangaka maile afianga. Our newspapers, our radio, and our broadcasters and our companies here, and very interesting, and also the fact that was bringing up in the first session, media. But then these other anonymous that do not willing to identify themselves and bring out and say issues, then this is the worry now and the issue. I mean, we had a look at all these issues of social media. And we feel with our providers, this is the way forward to drive the economy. But I think this is where collaboration and also partnership in terms of Media Council and also the government and our association to really how government could pursue the censorship, because tapes DVDs. There's no longer available with the YouTube and Netflix and all this. Open videos, which is censor pay on the fact to win. So whether we can relook at the Media Council and how we can identify, because we have our own values as Samoans. We have our own beliefs. And Facebook have their own values as well. And sometimes their values are not the same and aligned with our values. So when it's something olaya afiel tato malo, FMI Facebook, no, with our values, it's still valid and we won't put it down. So ovaenga ia where peona, as mentioned by Alex, with our jurisdictional laws, and this is where the problem, because these companies are not setting up on our land and in Samoa, where they should abide by our laws and how they operate, just like Blue Sky and Digicel when they came. They respect the laws of this country. But availing these platforms and giving the opportunity for a few people that misuse and the internet and providing this malicious content, pe o leo fōlinga i o se mea e matua te le maongonga maafia ai al tātou tunu. Thank you.
Sai lava tala e manga ia kalinga Cecilia malo. Hello, lava. Yeah, Alex, he has touched on the issue of jurisdictions in relation to operators. I just want to ask you a direct question here. When OLP came up, there was the issue of what rights does the government have to shut something down like that? So what is required for the gateway, for someone like your company, for Blue Sky, to actually block that? What does it take? Does it take a court order? Because then once you do that, then there are implications beyond it. I would really like to hear how you view the implications of such orders.
Okay. In the case of where there is, let's take an example, local example, right? So where let's say we are hosting content within our own network, kept on Samoan servers, and if that content is found to be, as you said, deemed inappropriate or causing harm, affecting others, then there's several ways that could happen, right? You can get someone complaining about the content. It will go through a process. It could be either raised with the police, it could be raised with us, because we could quickly look at it and say, look, this is actually infringing on people's rights, and it abuses or it breaks the, we've got an acceptable use policy. So there's a set of terms and conditions that people who are using our service will have to abide to. So if it breaches that, then we can say, look, you can either take steps to correct it and address it, or otherwise we're going to say, sorry, we don't want to put you on our service. We can suspend the service or terminate the service. If they come back, for example, and say, oh, look, you can't stop it, then we'll say, okay, well, then we can take it to the police and then have somebody, so we can take it up with the regulator and have the regulator assess it for us. And so then it could be by a court order or by an order from the regulator. So those are the normal legal processes that can happen, but we're governed by the terms and conditions. So when you take up a service, there's a certain values and certain conditions that we want you to adhere to, and so that's the first level. Second level is if we can't stop it there, then we can stop it from the law perspective. When it comes to things that are outside of Samoa, so the only thing that we can do is I can't stop, like as I said, there is no way I can stop a billion websites. That's basically turning off the internet. So it's on and off. That's the way it works. I cannot go to one site and say I want to stop this particular page or this particular word. I can't do that. You could, but it's a sophisticated system and it's not something that we would go into. So from an operator's perspective, we would then be told, and I know, for example, the regulator's office has issued something on child sexual censorship, right? So in that scenario, is anything that is child porn, if it relates to abuse of those type of scenarios, where children are being used, there is a list, and the list gets uploaded to us, and we would block the site. Okay, so that has to be by policy, by law, and for us to then enact. And that at the moment is being tested, and it's almost like it's not by law, but it's being, hey, look, we're encouraged to support and carry out those initiatives. So that's one example where government says, look, we'll deal with it, but we'll deal with it in a specific manner. It's for a particular type of content, and we want it stopped, which I feel is correct, because I'm a parent, and I don't want my children's photos or anything being used for any purpose. Yeah. So that's right. So, but it's when content sits outside of Samoa, we can't stop it, we can't control it. Then it's a decision of somebody makes a call. Look, this is actually harmful for Samoa. Then we issue an order to carry it out. So does that answer the?
More than answers the question. But I just a follow-up question. I know you've been here for how many years now? Over 20 years?
Born and raised.
Born and raised. So over 21 years.
Yes.
Born and raised. That's right. I went to school with your sister. To what degree should culture be considered when you do implement or observe court orders like that? What if it's only on a cultural basis but doesn't have a legal basis?
Well, look, I mean, I think laws of the land are all taking into consideration the traditions and values of our people, right? I mean, I've seen problems and issues being resolved by talanoa, right? So, in this forum where you have people complaining, why can't it be a talanoa session on the internet? Where people can, and there is a way, there is a fa'aloalo, where people can respectfully share ideas. And that's been in our culture for many years. And it's something that we should uphold and use. So, why not come and have a talanoa session and have it where there's certain topics, there's certain rules you got to abide to, but it's an opportunity for people to raise concerns, because it's through that forum, then people can, they can share their values, and government understands, and everybody who's participating can take from that something. So, so in the case of where culture comes in, I think in a lot of contexts, some of those things are taken into consideration in the law, but I think there's also, hopefully people have a bit of common sense too. And that's where common sense has to prevail. Common sense comes into it, and then people use that.
As you know, common sense can be a rare commodity, so let's not take it for granted. Thank you, Alex. Moving on to Rita. Yes, I do apologize. Yes, CSL doesn't provide phones. Very unfortunate. But Blue Sky is more than owning up to it. So in regards to, we've talked about cultural rights. How about religious rights when it comes to matters of content sharing online? What are your views on this?
Okay. I guess that kind of pertains to me, because my other hat is a faletua. I guess back to the laws of Samoa, I think it also covers, back to the Constitution, that the usage and the sharing of the knowledge is all embedded in our Constitution, and as our guiding principle to govern Samoa, and where our acts follow in place. As far as the religious aspect, well, for me personally as a parent, I just wanted to go back to the regulation. I regulate my kids' internet, I just, 8 o'clock, give me the phones, if you want internet, I want to know what they're accessing, because they're children, and you should be monitoring your kids, what you do offline, and online. So it's no difference. And I think we need to build that. religious content, I haven't really seen, I mean, in Samoa, you know, the churches do have their websites, and, you know, to me, there hasn't been anything that has had any issue as far as content, religious content. I know there is a lot outside of Samoa, but I don't know how much is coming in and how much is being read in Samoa. So, you know, that could affect, you know, the social norms within the country, you know, to a worst case scenario where, you know, there could be an uprising. But as far as content that's in Samoa and what I have seen, there hasn't been any issues. I think where I'm at, you know, I'm not only a Faletua Whaiwhiao, I'm also in an environment where at one of the Aonga Whaiwhiao, you know, I try to do capacity building in that sense because they're supposed to be trained as, you know, future ministers, you know, the challenges of the internet and the data and knowledge, you know, how some knowledge, little knowledge can be dangerous, you know, and how you use the knowledge, you know, for the betterment of the people, you know, just to ensure, you know, that they know about, you know, security threats and things like that. But as far as a religious perspective, there isn't anything extreme, you know, again, in here in Samoa, lang ay whaawaile tsua, ia tātou atunu, ia whaftai lawa mula avanoa.
Yeah, we all wear many hats. I think a case that occurred when I was working in Samoa Observer, where we did look where this issue of religion did infringe upon media freedom, was when we used the word nipple in a reporting on a court story. Yeah, it's the exposure of a nipple of a woman, and we got so many complaints at the time. Mainly from Whaiwhiaus and the religious community on why should we use the word, that particular word, when we can dress it up and change it. And so that's where, when it comes to matters of content, and especially in the media, that's where then religion does have an impact and an influence. But otherwise, yeah, go ahead.
If I could just add on, I need, like there are certain words like for domain names, you know, so if you want to register a .ws domain name, there is already a list for Samoan .ws website.
Do you have an example?
All the, upusa, you know,
Okay.
all those and other words. And if any other words came about, then it would just be added to the list. This is just for like a registration of a domain name.
And so is that list arbitrary? Is it developed by your internally?
It was developed originally back in '98. So, and then if a complaint comes, then there's a process that goes through Foreign Affairs, and then if they say yes, then it's just simply put on the list.
Okay. Because at one point, the apia.com was actually a pornographic site. So that's interesting.
If that happens, what we try to do is we
I just knew.
liaise with those websites, you know, and we assist, like when there are complaints, to take those down, and we have assisted others to contact them. We've assisted the Ministry of MCIT when, I believe at one point, to contact people overseas. Also, Facebook and Twitter, they also have defamation report forms, you know, so even down to the internet user can use those forms, and as long as it doesn't abide by the terms and service, they will turn off those pages.
Interesting. So if there are, is it fair to say that if there are issues with, say, the media websites, or there's some abusive people on media websites, that we can't do much about it and they're trolling, so going to CSL would be an avenue?
You can't.
If they're
We
hosted
assist
locally.
with providing information. We don't provide the legal or, you know, but we'd say, look, these are available options that you can do to address the problem at hand. You know, and you can have a lawyer do it on your behalf, and they go on to those pages and do the report. You know, and then and some ask if there's a court order, then they will definitely also, you know.
Thank you. We'll move on to Tosi, who just smiled when I said pornography. So I'm sure you have very strong views on this matter. Yeah, what are your views in relation to, say, if we do start enforcing the fact that the free distribution of pornography or public distribution of pornography is illegal in Samoa? That has ramifications on media freedom itself. What's your views on this?
Well, first of all, I did laugh when you said, because I'm quite amazed that you've got all this access to these sites. But that said, let me just first comment about, about the OLP issue. Our veteran journalist here, Apolo Lanspolo, referred to this earlier in our earlier discussion, is the fact that OLP started off as a very good blog, if I may say, because I think he's a blogger or whoever the people are behind it. And then it became very personal. And that's when problems starts, because, it went from being a very, they presented good arguments, constructive arguments, and then they became very personal to the point where people don't want to hear that, If they went straight down the line and present constructive arguments against the government, it would be a very popular, interesting site to look at. But that is not the case. So I guess you can say that I'm not a big fan of OLP now, but I used to read it. I just wanted to see, how they perceive the government from a different perspective. Yeah, but now it's a different story altogether. In terms of, we have a case that's currently pending. This is to do with Facebook again. What started off as a normal conversation with a stranger, I'm not going to mention any names because otherwise become contempt of court, but what started off as a normal conversation with a stranger turned into a phone sex with this stranger. So you really cannot control what goes on in the social media. You really can't sit there and say, okay, we're going to block as soon as something comes, because there's millions and millions of people in the world who are on the site at the same time, So it's really difficult, really. I mean, we've heard from our service providers how hard it is to do something like that. And I don't think I can add anything on apart from the fact that, it goes back to education. I think we need to educate our people, especially the youth, because, they're the ones growing up and they're the ones who've got all access. They're very switched on when it comes to, to modern technology. And I think we need to go back to the basics and educate our people about the importance of how to use the internet properly. And I think this is the role that the media can play. This is the role that the media can come in and do educational programs and say this is the good thing about social media such as Facebook, and this is the bad thing about it, so that people can be aware of what's going on in the real world and the impact of what they're sharing on Facebook, for instance, to other people. Because at the moment, people can just share it. And when you like something, the other people can see what you like and they think, yeah, well, he likes, women being abused and beaten on. But that's the sort of thing that we need to make sure that our people are aware of. And I think it's a very important role for the media to play. And if we could, get together with the government, we've got MCIL here, perhaps we could do something like that. And, in the Office of the Regulator and Blue Sky and CSL, and we could, start something, right now or in the future.
Well,